Happy World Tutors Day. This is our second conversation live on LinkedIn for the 2nd of July, 2024, World Tutors Day. And I'm here with the awesome Arthur Ponsonby from Right Trick Tuition. Arthur and I have been chatting in this lovely, sort of like easy, aligned way for the last few months. And every
Yeah.
time we talk, I feel that we are on the same page and coming from the same place. So I'm really, really curious to hear what's going to come out of this conversation. I just said to Arthur before we opened this meeting that the thing that I always get from conversations with you is that you really enjoy your job. You're really proud of the work that you
Mm,
do, Right Tuition and your tuition centers. So that's really what I want to explore today. And if you sort of
mm,
bear in mind that the people who are listening to this are walking the same path as you, and they'll be at different stages of that path, and that you really have the opportunity to share and inspire and direct the next generation of tutoring professionals. So I know that you started off as a primary school teacher. Why
mm.
don't you start there and tell us how you got here? Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Um, and yeah, I suppose it was great to be here and talking to you because, yes, I think those that are really passionate about education, there are opportunities beyond mainstream education. And the setting of a school is very particular, and that doesn't necessarily gel with people with lots of character flaws, such as myself. Don't respond well to authority, don't respond to a rules-based system. But no, I used to teach in a school, and it was wonderful training I got there, and it was invaluable. But I very quickly realized that maybe, my best efforts were to be applied outside of a school. Um, uh, and I went from there to go and teach in a tuition center in Rochester. And I met this amazing woman called Anita Clemens, and we're very addendum, as the Romans would say, on, our models of education, our philosophy on education. And from there, we went and set up I went to set up some tuition centers in and around Kent. But yeah, I think it's so important to get up in the day and be entertained by going to work. And I find that what our model of education does, tutoring, is it gets us to enjoy all the lovely bits, the fact that you get to teach freely and creatively. I personally love talking to parents about their child's education. Not everyone likes that, but I derive huge enjoyment out of that. And we've built a fantastic team around us of really articulate and charismatic teachers and support staff who also enjoy engaging with parents. And also just the benefits you can get from tutoring and in a sort of small period of time, what you can do with children in terms of assessing them, understanding them, both as learners and as people, and then, sort of engaging in a program of support that builds confidence and skills. It's just you get very tangible benefits. And it's very heartwarming on a daily basis to see what impact, can be made. And I think sort of how I envisaged it, say, 10 years ago is not how it is now. Um, but it's just a very fast-paced, exciting model of education and something that I'm very grateful to work within because it's fun. And you've got to get up in the morning and not be wholly overwhelmed by the idea of going to work. You've got to feel really positive and entertained by the idea. So yeah, I feel very lucky.
What a lovely thing. And I'm getting this sort of mental image of a really buzzing tuition center. What does it look like?
They look a bit different. We've got sort of one which is based, well, two which are based within town. We have a lease on a building. And then we've got one which is based out of a school and another one that's based out of a community centre. So they take on different appearances, but they're after school during the week and at the weekends. And that's when children are running up the stairs, having their lessons. The reception is a beehive of activity with parents and children talking to each other. I'll say the secondary level people often have their heads down, looking at a screen. Sometimes there's this library-esque silence. I go in and I encourage them to avert their gaze from their telephone communication network systems and talk and engage with one another. But you get to know children on a more personal basis, and it's really fun to know what's going on in their lives, what they've got coming up, other extracurricular interests they have. So it's always just a wash with pupils, parents, teachers, and it's a hotbed of academe, I can assure you.
Tell me about the group dynamics, because you just said you want them to put their screens down and communicate with
Yeah,
each other. Tell us about that.
yeah. I mean, I was brought up by two lovely, lovely, fantastic people, but they're both a caveman and a cave woman in terms of we didn't really have technology growing up. And that's partly
Sorry, I must just share with our listeners that Arthur opens every Zoom meeting by saying, "Have I got it right? Where's my camera?"
It is true, and I need your help. But I think I'm very passionate about. So I think it's wonderful that tutoring, because everyone's different. So some children really engage with online tuition or through other means, but there's great variety these days, which is wonderful for parents and children. But yes, the small group dynamic is all about that connection between not just the pupils and the teacher, but the social interaction and the fun from learning with your peers. And for us, learning has to be fun. It's not sort of a Mickey Mouse circus. It's a serious place of learning, but actually through engaging the senses, asking questions, listening to your peers, articulating ideas, just being more immersed in the learning process, I think is the best way to get to having fun. And we try and give our teachers as much freedom as possible. It's the balance between freedom to teach as they want to teach, but knowing that they're supported by our exclusive learning materials, our lesson plans, so they know exactly what objectives they're trying to meet, and making sure that we're supporting them with all of that, whilst they can just go in and take care of their cohort of pupils, not just with a fantastic lesson, but with all the support services like feedback, constructive marking of work, and so forth. So I think it's got to make a free environment, that small group dynamic. When you can, it's really fun to see what children can come up with.
And I think what you've just described there is a whole lot of structure that's
Mm,
creating that freedom. So
mm,
let's unpick that, because not all, well, let's explore the idea of a tuition center. I
mm.
know that one of the reasons why you're passionate, no, you tell me, why did you go into tuition centers rather than leaning into one-to-one?
No, it's really, yeah. Particularly, I was very lucky growing up. I went to a really, very well-known good school. I was, completely spoiled in terms of all those opportunities that one was afforded. And I'm 39 now. And when I was growing up, it was just the anxious affluent that could now have tutoring. And I thought small groups was not just a really buzzing learning environment and really engaging, but it also allows you to drive down rates and make tutoring more accessible. And our core mission is to make high quality small group tutoring more available to a widening demographic. So I think they were just, and I think it's crying out to, it's giving an answer to things that are very pressing in education. Large class sizes are something that does perturb some or a lot of parents. 32 in a class where we are in Kent. And I think sort of people just want to know that sort of they're getting a bit more of a personalized education on that front. But yeah, I went into sort of small groups because my direct experience after leaving school, as I said, was in that Rochester Centre. And it lit up teaching in terms of becoming something so fun. You really got to see people's involvement. And I greatly believe that when your teacher's happy and the organization's happy, that filters down through to the pupils, just like sort of good or bad senior management in a school. Um, uh, so
It does sound similar. It really sounds
mm,
like you're in a role of a school lead. You've put yourself in a school leadership role.
mm.
So, for example, the teaching resources that you provide. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we have exclusive learning materials for all our primary year groups from for year 1 to year 6. Each year is 39 weeks of bespoke learning materials that allow children to accelerate learning at their own pace. But also they're unique to our centre, so it's something that no one else gets. We don't outsource them else to a third party. And that gives continuity, which is so important. It gives structure and a program. Of course, one can be flexible, and it's important, I think, tutoring to be flexible in deviating from that as and when to personalize education for the individual. But I think it's important for a tuition center to have something that is unique. We talk about things that might be quite unique, or it's either unique or it's not. And I think sort of having learning materials and a clear philosophy on learning and something that gives that level of expectation is really important for building up an idea of who you are and what you can offer parents and pupils.
That's really, really interesting. So if somebody is listening to this as a former teacher, considering building a tuition or at the beginnings of building a tuition center, you're saying that there needs to be a USP. And what I'm understanding from you is that the USP is always coming back to your values and your culture. And that's trickling through. So there's this sense of group fun, excitement for learning, that sort of idea of being entertained by academia.
Yeah.
It's really compelling.
I think I think you know what, if I can do, I really am like I mean teaching is what I've done when I've sort of tried to make my life be more sensible and grown up. Okay, but for the last sort of like 13, 14 years, it's so I really believe we have the best teachers in the world because of the way we use humor, how articulate we are, the characteristics we have. Sometimes I feel that schools or mainstream education can seep a lot of the creativity and that sort of stuff out of. And if you are passionate about education and you want to almost have your own mini type of school without the bureaucracy, well, we are Ofsted registered, so there is bureaucracy. But if you want to really focus on all the really fun, enjoyable parts of why you went into teaching, it is such a good model to pursue. You can sort of create tuition centers in the mold of how you see education. People talk about square pegs and round holes so much, don't they? For children, and children feel they almost coast their way through school. It's a great opportunity to catch those children. I think we're at a time right now where schools need support, both resources, personnel, and we've got a whole resource of people in this world of tutoring that if they work more with mainstream education, I think the people that are going to benefit are the children. And I think it's got something to offer that mainstream education isn't offering at the moment. And that's not just a point and sort of, mock. No, it's not at all. I think we all want the same thing.
That's right.
And that's very powerful when you all come together and share the same ideas and enthusiasm and motivations, then you can really create some fantastic change. So it needs things like sort of qualified tutor to gather people together and really sort of find out sort of what roles in education can be. It is a vocation. We all sort of come from that sort of angle, don't we? And I think when you get all those people together, that sort of idea of collective effervescence, you're coming together, sharing that same view, that is a real buzz that people get a lot out of.
So you've just taken collective efficacy and turned it into collective effervescence, which is just so delightful. Right. The reason why I've been having my head down as you were talking was because I'm writing notes, because you've touched on so many helpful threads, and I'm just going to go back over them if you wouldn't mind. Tell us why you're Ofsted registered.
Because we want to make our services as available as possible. We can therefore accept childcare vouchers through being Ofsted registered. And that is something that distinguishes ourselves from obviously some other forms of tutoring. It also gives that badge of authenticity. I think parents want to know that their children are safe, that they're being taught by experts or qualified experts. And there's that sort of, it's that badge of authenticity, really. But it's a really good thing. All of our tuition centres are Ofsted registered. Safeguarding training, pediatric first aid, all these things are very much inbuilt into how we train our staff, and the assurances we can give to parents around, when they leave their child, they know that they will be returned to them an hour later with all their limbs intact, and buzzing and positive about all the academic instruction they've been receiving.
So that's lovely, isn't it? Because you're saying really that it gives that assurance. and the reassurance, and that builds that trustful relationship between you and the parent.
It does, but you know what? I'm going to contradict myself here because obviously one of the lovely things about tutoring is it's becoming sort of more vetted, but it has been sort of free for people to start up in many different manifestations, and I think that's wonderful. If someone's got a passion and they enjoy teaching and they are able to do that from their sitting room after school. They might be retired, just want to keep their sort of like foot in the door. That's fantastic. But I think sort of obviously the professionalization of tutoring is, I think, a really good thing. And it's a ship we're very keen to stay on board and try and move with the times, because I need all the help I can get sometimes.
Well, we really appreciate your humility in that, because it seems to me that you are really taking a lead on
Well,
bringing that professionalism. I want to ask you a different question, if you don't mind. I want to ask you about, not all tuition centres are created equal. And I think specifically, each one does tend to have its own approach. You see that with the tuition centre. We're not going to name any of the other tuition centres, but I do think that you've really captured something very confident, very freeing and exciting in the way that you've built your tuition center. And the title that I've given to this session was creating excellence in tuition centers. So how did you scale that culture? How did you build out a philosophy and then let it exist correctly in 4 different centers?
well, I think sort of it's, in a nutshell, we try and do what we've noticed through talking to parents, in the and understanding through talking to thousands of parents. What do they really crave? Well, I think they crave smaller class sizes. I think they crave more than 2 parent-teacher consultations a year where you're on a stopwatch. And they yearn to understand more about how their child's progressing at school. It's often I will have a chat with a parent who's in with child with a year 5 or year 6, and they don't really know what they've been doing in primary education. We're about to end that. So I think if you can do little things that sort of identify shortcomings in the mainstream system and then really champion those, and really understand the value of that, that is very being built on what's important. For example, when we started, it wasn't the same as now. Now we've got a very big social mobility edge, where I didn't envisage when I started doing loads and loads of charitable classes. We're not a registered charity, but our now mission is to try and it's evolved into wanting to support the poorest children in our local area, those in receipt of free school meals, the pupil premium grant, or those just above that threshold, creating scholarship schemes. So I think ultimately it's listening and evolving and making sure that you're extending opportunities. I think education is the great leveler, or has the potential to be the great leveler. So we're really proud to be able to offer our services at, we think it's a fairly decent rate, but then also to use a lot of our profit share to give free education to those most in need. So I think there's a big sort of element of a growing level of corporate responsibility, we feel, to know that you're working with families, you're working in the community. I think you've got to be putting stuff back in and immersing yourself in that community, whether that's through sponsorship, whether it's through sort of other community-based partnerships. It doesn't have to just be a tutoring company. We sponsor cricket teams, football teams, women's business organisations, all sorts of different things. Maidstone United Football Club, they did very well in the FA Cup this year. So but it's fun, that stuff. And because you're working with people can be weird, myself included, absolutely, and unpredictable. But I like to get out from a computer screen and sort of go and explore not just obviously the education, but all the other aspects of community-based work. And so it's evolved in that way.
I think you've nailed it with the word community, and that a tuition centre becomes very much of its community and has to have, relationships with the local community beyond the schools. I think it's also lovely that you touched on the students who are just above the threshold for pupil premium and making sure that they're catered to also. And I think that there's something you mentioned before about the children who are square pegs.
Mm.
I think that the tutoring profession is populated with adults who are square pegs.
Yeah,
And the fact that you found a way to
it's a very good point.
pursue your values, your passion, and your vocation
Mm.
through tutoring and tuition centres just points to that sort of agility that that tuition
That's very
allows.
generous of you. I put it down to, I was always told from a young age, I didn't know what the man was talking about, but my dad said that I would work for myself. What he's really saying is that you're bloody minded, and, you will be the worst employee. And you know what? He was so right. I was an appalling employee. Um, but, actually from doing stuff that, doesn't go particularly well, enlightens you towards what you really might want to do. Um, um, I, it is so. I think it's you've been very generous with the word agility there. Thank you. Um,
I think though, to be fair, the agility is also in the ability to bring learning to where it needs to be, and for you to build
mm,
out your own version becomes
mm,
the interesting part here. And the people, you don't need every parent to come to you, do you? You just need the ones who want what you offer. And I've asked you before about what your goals and aspirations are in
mm.
right tuition, and it's very much about, you're not looking for world domination, are you?
No, no, not at all. It is it is a lifestyle business because I'm not looking to sort of build it up and sell it. I feel so fortunate that we as a business we really enjoy what we do, um, uh, and I love the value. I do feel a bit quite proud. I haven't sort of created many things from scratch, like sort of, and actually I'm proud about what it does in the local area. Um, um, and I think we've gone through a big series in the last 10 years of developing various tuition centres, and those centres are at different stages. But the appetite to keep setting up more is not there. I'd rather really make sure that within the local community, you're really making sure that the service as well. I think we always say that there's great opportunity in providing good service because often, we don't receive a great service sometimes in England. It's not like American service where you think they're being there's overtly positive and very charismatic. I think sort of providing a good service is really, really important. Um, um, I and I just want to make sure that we maintain the same level of care and dynamic professionalism and contact. We do things like you get unlimited free consultations. I can't, you just got to keep, I think, the business a certain size to make sure that all those really lovely aspects of the business aren't watered down or thinned out. We know what we do it well. I don't want us to, spread ourselves too thin. And I think sort of I always want to try and encourage other people to do, if they were thinking about that, it's really fun helping people get started. I've never been worried in 10 years about any competition. As long as you keep your head down and you focus and know what and you believe in what you do, that's the most important thing. But it's actually really fun. I enjoy helping other teachers get into this or trying to give, some good or bad advice about how to get started and build your portfolio, so to speak. But yeah, yeah.
So tell me this. We're going to wrap up soon. I want to hear
Mm.
about what a win has been in right tuition, either for a student or a tutor, or moments in a tuition center, or when a parent has really felt like you've built them up and helped them to take their family where they need to get to.
Mm. A win. I always think the thing I love most above actually exam results is actually when a parent passes on a certain observation made at school around a shift in character, engagement, ability, skill. When it's picked up on by that sort of other, party, that's always, I think, I've resonated differently to exam results. Exam results always you've got a lot of like sort of frenetic worry, don't you? So when the like code comes in, you're like, okay, but I think so when you hear lovely feedback observed by others or a confidence in their child to actually really confront challenges or just engage in learning, I'd say that's more satisfying than sort of achieving the excellent exam results we have been achieving for the last 10 years. I think character development is an area that tutoring can play a big role in. It's not just about academic study, and sometimes there's a bit of a shortfall in that school. within schools. And I think the more confidence and ability you give a child to sort of try new avenues of interest, sort of explore their characteristics and who they are, that is really, really important. You're not just equipping them with academic skills. I think it's about mentorship and giving them the belief that they can use their academic study, but also their characteristics to go and explore opportunities and so forth. So I really like hearing not just the academic stuff, but also really more on the personal side. And thankfully, because you work really closely with families, there's a lot of transparency. So you really get to see what's happening, what impact you're achieving, and trying to be helpful to those people.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. And I think what's so interesting is it's quite counterintuitive. The idea that tutoring develops character is not really what people anticipate. People, traditionally tutoring has had this, assumption that it's academic hothousing, or what did you use that phrase before? The anxious affluent?
Affluent, yeah.
So there's so much that you're saying that is just gently breaking the mold of what it is that tutors and tutoring does. And I'm noticing as well the way that the tuition center embeds itself in the community, within the family relationships, that it really builds into that idea of it takes a village to raise a child. That is such a lovely. Oh, you've frozen. Are you with me?
Yeah, sorry, I think we both froze. Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
fine. So what's a lovely place for us to finish up with? Give us one top tip, please, for somebody who wants to walk your path, who is an exiting primary teacher, whose location is far away from where you are. How do they get themselves started?
Well, I think number one, definitely don't follow my path because I said all sorts of weird ways, but like professionally, I think for me it's about there will always be a reason, and there would have always been a reason for me to not take that leap. You will always find a reason. But I will balance that out by saying I was very lucky because I didn't have a mortgage or a wife. Do I have a wife? No.
I don't have a wife. Well, I do.
I was trying to think of it. I had sort of fewer obligations, which allowed me to really chuck myself in and really work to get it started. But you know what? There's nothing so particularly amazing about myself. I think if you are somebody who's passionate about education, if you have a vision for what you want your schools or centers to look like, and you want to rediscover the joy of teaching, go and have a go. Go and have a go. And I just believe that obviously you've got to be underpinned by various structures, but if you've got charisma and you've got drive and you want to find an aspect of education that's slightly different to that which you've been experiencing, just have a go. And incentivizing referrals when you're getting us started is the most important thing for building those numbers quickly. Because the hard thing, and I will acknowledge, is that looking over the shoulder in your first few years. And all I would say to someone else is, yeah, I know it's petrifying. You sometimes can't see how the light that's at the end of the tunnel, but there's a lot to be said for persistence and actually surrounding yourself with the right people. And like the lady next door stops me from saying too many silly things. Stephanie, she's been with me for like 9 years now. And she's absolutely fantastic. Surround yourself with the right people, but knuckle down and give things a go. There'll always be a reason not to. Just go for it, basically. I know this sounds very
fantastic. You're frozen again. Well, one of us has. That was such an inspirational place for us to pause here. And Arthur, I think you don't know how good you are. I think your humility is very compelling, but honestly, you've clearly created something that as a parent, I would make use of if you were down the road. And I think that it's a wonderful route for an exiting teacher to take, and it's a wonderful resource for families and communities. So congratulations, happy World Tutors Day. Odette will be here at 11 a.m. with the Tutoring Business Club, which I hope you're going to be joining, because building the businesses up to help them to network and to work in context with each other has become a really powerful aspect of what we do. Thank you again for your time.
No, absolutely. And I'll just say, being a business member is incredibly important. It's so easy to stay in your own head. I need encouragement to get out of that. And having sort of that relationship with other people in the community, each time you meet up with them, it gets you to look at something slightly different. And I definitely think that is incredibly important, especially if you've been going a little while. You need to, be looking out and getting inspiration. And collaboration within the tutoring world is right and ready for, for people to grab that opportunity. So I've enjoyed being a business member. It's fantastic, and well done to you.
Thank you. Happy World Tutors Day.
You
Cheers.
too.
All the best. Thank you, Arthur. Bye.
All right, bye.